Black History Month began in February 1926 as Negro History Week. The celebration was created by noted African-American historian and educator, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, and it later grew to include the entire month of February. Dr. Woodson was also the founder of what is now the Association for the Study of African-American Life and History, known as ASALH. This year, the organization is focusing on Black health and wellness for its Black History Month virtual festival. Here's my conversation with ASALH president, Dr. Marvin Delaney. So I think I want to start here. I think it's fair to say that, thankfully, people are starting to recognize that restricting the idea and the celebration of Black history to a month doesn't make a lot of sense, that Black history is American history, that there are important parts of Black history that show up all over our culture and our history. So then I think some people are saying, so why still have a month like Black History Month if we're moving toward a more general understanding of the integration of Black history with American history? I just want to give you a couple of minutes to talk about the importance of maintaining this month-long celebration as well.
Sure. I've been engaged in the study of African-American history for, I'll say about 50 years. I came into this topic when I was undergraduate student at Central State University, and I was part of what was called the Black Studies movement. Mm-hmm. At that time, we were protesting, shutting down universities, demonstrating, taking over the president's office, trying to get Black studies as a part of the curriculum, both in the public schools as well as in colleges and universities. It was a long struggle, a long and difficult struggle. But here we are 50 years later, basically still trying to struggle to get African-American history and culture in our schools, and again, even in some colleges and universities. There's still a fight against it. As you witnessed recently, this whole notion about critical race theory, and that it's making white students and white people in general feel bad because they have to learn Black history and read authors such as Toni Morrison. So here we are, 2022. 107 years after Carter G. Woodson founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, yet we're still facing this idea that Black history should not be taught in the schools. At least they're not now saying, like they said, like one of Woodson's teachers told him at Harvard, that Negroes had no history. Yeah. But now we're facing the fact that whites in general don't want to learn Black history. They think it's, makes them feel bad. And, of course, I always use the line, for some reason, they're ashamed of their history, when in reality, Black history, as you pointed out, is a part of American history. So we have to continue to do Black History Month because we still don't have the infusion and the comprehensive inclusion of African-American history and culture in American school curriculums. We're still not part of this master narrative, except maybe for Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. But as you know, our history goes well beyond Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. We were a part of almost every aspect and every period of American history, from the colonial period to the American Revolution, to the antebellum period, all of the wars, from the Revolutionary War to the Civil War, World War I, World War II, and so on. Yet, here we are, as I said, in 2022, still fighting these same old battles that, as I said, it's almost like I've been fighting these battles for 50 years. I can remember in one of my first academic appointments, the students asked me, why do you people have to have a whole month to celebrate your history? And of course, their pushback was, we don't have a month to celebrate white history. And of course, I was able to point out very easily, we celebrate white history every day.
All year, right?
Every month. It's actually, we get overwhelmed by it. We all know the stories, Paul Revere and Abraham Lincoln But indeed, those stories in the master narrative usually do not include.
Yeah, they exclude it.
Yeah. Yes, our stories are excluded.
Yeah.
So, I told an interviewer the other day, I want them to put me out of business. That is, since
I dare you to put me out of business, right?
Put me out of business by indeed including the story of African Americans in our master narrative.
Yeah.
During Black History Month, I get to run around a lot. Not so much now because of COVID, but almost every year, for 50 years, I get these calls in February. Will you come out and do a presentation on Black history? Will you help us celebrate Black History Month? Well, as I said, put me out of business. All you got to do is include African American history in the master narrative and teach it along with American history for 12 months.
Right.
We wouldn't have to do Black history.
That will be good, right?
Yeah.
So I do want to talk about this year's focus, Black health and wellness, and what that means in 2022 and what it will mean this month in terms of the things that you guys highlight.
Sure. As you know, we decided the theme for Black History Month at least 2 years in advance. And it just so happens that our theme for this month or this year, Black health and wellness, fits, I won't say nicely, but indeed has been sort of coincidental with this terrible pandemic that we're suffering through. And so as a result, we indeed have designed our programs through ASALH and online, by the way. We're doing virtual presentations to deal with Black and health and wellness in a variety of ways. One of the sessions is, in fact, it's called Black Bodies One. Looks at how Blacks have been exploited for medical science in this country. From Marion Sims to the Tuskegee study to the use of Henrietta Lacks's cells. Then we also have Black Bodies 2, which looks at normal, what do they call this? It looks at how NFL players, don't get the same consideration in terms of dementia and those concussions that white players get. So we're looking at various aspects then of our African American health and wellness, looking at indeed how COVID is sort of indicative of the disparities that Blacks face in terms of health and wellness in this country.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point to make. There's been a lot of talk about the disproportionate effect of COVID on the African American community, and of course here in Detroit, I mean, this is ground zero for the incredible pain and sorrow that we as African Americans are suffering because of it. But it's not a COVID problem. That is an American health problem that is playing out through this deadly disease. It existed before COVID. All of these problems, all of these disparities have been with us forever. COVID makes it more in plain sight, I suppose, and the effects of it are more devastating than some of the other things.
Yes, and as you said, all of this has existed for years. One of the conferences that I used to attend before COVID was the National Conference on Health Disparities. And of course, at those conferences, almost every year, you learn of what they call the social determinants of health, how income, where you live, the food deserts, and the type of work that African Americans engage in, the use of African Americans communities as dumping places for environmental hazards. All of those things have affected our health, again, well before COVID. So, and indeed, one of the things I learned at this conference was that Black men had the worst health outcomes than any other group of people in our country because of the type of jobs we have, stress, and the fact that indeed some of us don't go to see the doctor or the dentist. And so, we indeed became, the highest risk group then for COVID. And I'll just say this: I lost a cousin to COVID because of his susceptibility to negative health outcomes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, congratulations again on the work for Black History Month. And here's hoping someday they will put you out of business.
Let's hope so.
That's right.